I need you to drive me to Sissy's.
No, thanks.
I need to get something. My designs! Circuit blueprint, base code, overtime contingency, Glasgow block, all of it!
She's Lumen through and through. She was raised by them. She's a soldier.
What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Underground Audience Secrets. We finally got Cobel. Is she the savior? And what's her relationship with James Eagan? Let's discuss that in the video today. Now, one of the things I want to point out is, in the beginning of the episode, we see her drive to Salt's Neck. And Salt's Neck is actually a town, we come to find out it's a town that she grew up in. But one of the things we notice is, once again, things look old, rusted, and dated. We do come upon, I believe it's Poppy's Cafe, and Poppy or Drippy Pot Cafe, one of the two, I believe it's Drippy Pot Cafe, is actually a building where we see older citizens of the town. They look sickly and older. They even reference one of the members of the town's children actually get into a snowplow accident. But most of the people we see in the town are older. Now, the great thing about having Cobel revisit this town is we get a better insight of her upbringing and where she's from. We also get a better insight on, is there someone in her past that actually cares about her? And we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the video. Now, they make it a point to show drug addicts actually in the town. We see that they're huffing or sniffing. What we later come to find out is ether. And we also later see in the episode that there is an ether factory. Now, it's clear that at one time, Lumen actually ran this town. And what I mean by ran this town is most of the inhabitants of Salt's Neck looks like they worked with Lumen at an earlier point in time at what looks to be ether factory in the middle of town. Now, one of the things that we notice is that we hear from Cobel's friend. I believe they say his name is Hampton, but I'm not 100% sure on that, so we'll have to look into that and see. But we later come to find out that he actually not only used to work in a Lumen factory, but actually is selling ether. So he's a local drug dealer. Now, that's ironic, as we find out from the conversation between him and Cobel that they actually used to work in the ether factory as children. So the very product that they came up actually helping, I guess, to develop and distribute, he's actually selling to his own community. So there's a lot of irony in that as well. But prior to this episode, we don't see anyone outside of Lumen who has any real ties or real meaning to Harmony Cobel. So this episode really kind of walks us through her history. It shows us that she does have some family, but it also shows us that she does have an actual friend in the world that she could go to, okay? Now, initially when she walks into the cafe, we can see from the expression on her friend's face that they recognize each other. And also the other residents seem to have recognized her as well. They also look surprised to see her. And we would assume that they're surprised to see her because they know that she works for Lumen. And Lumen's clearly abandoned that town at this point. And they wreaked havoc on the town, basically got what they could get out of the workers, depleted the town's resources, and left the town basically a ghost town, right? So they used the workers to distribute their product, made money off of them, and deserted the city. So we can see that. Now, initially I thought this might be her brother, but as the dialogue continues, we come to find out that this is a friend that she had as a younger girl. Now, I'm not going to go over every single detail that happened to this episode because I want to really hone in on an important point for this video. And that point is Harmony the savior? Can she actually be the one to bring Lumen to their knees? Now, it's important to realize that if they don't have this episode, we don't have enough information about Miss Cobel to actually, for them to sell us on why she would turn on Lumen. Now, during this episode, we see Devin Scout actually call her phone. After the previous episode 7, looks like she was going to, but we assume, or at least I assume, that she didn't. But in this episode, we see that she called her several times. Now, initially, we look at it like, she'd been an idiot for making this call, and I still kind of think it's extremely risky that she made the call, being that she does not know anything about Cobel's backstory. But, desperate people do desperate things. Once Cobel gets to Sissy, which we come to find out is her aunt's house, we actually see that Sissy, her aunt, is actually the one who's the true Kier believer, and the one who really believes in what Lumen has done or is doing, to the point where even though the town is depleted, the resources are gone, everybody else has kind of abandoned Lumen, she still is an avid believer. And we could tell that she's the one in the household who drove that information or that indoctrination into Cobel more so than her mother, because her mother, come to find out, was actually extremely against Lumen. So she was not a person in support of Lumen. They don't speak directly towards if she was in support of Kier or not, but we know for sure that she was not in support of Lumen. Now, we would assume that seeing Harmony Cobel even in season 1, or her breathing tube in season 1, that she would have been someone who would have volunteered for different tests for Lumen, and could possibly be a follower, seeing how very adamant that Cobel was, or it is or was, about following Lumen and Kier's principles. But the revelation that actually her mother was against Lumen actually shows us that, hey, because she cared about her mother, there's going to be a possibility that she sympathizes with her mother in turn. Now, we also learned that Sissy, her aunt, is the one, since she was the one that was pushing Lumen, she's the one that kept all the records that, had her go to the Wintertide Fellowship and actually had her be groomed to be a lifelong worker for Lumen. Now, when we see her go into, I guess, what would be the basement or a guest house, a lighthouse, whatever you want to call it, we see her go and find her Wintertide Fellowship, I guess, plaque, and we see her go in to retrieve some plans. We later find out that those plans are the design for the actual Severance chip, and it looks like she, according to her, is the creator of the Severance chip. So this all ties together to where she's referenced before, "You need me," when she says to Helen Eagan, and how adamant she is about seeing Cold Harbor completed, possibly why she lived next door to Mark, because if she knows that something that Mark does triggers how he's able to refine the files, she's going to want to keep an eye on what he's doing on a day-to-day basis. Keep in mind, it's kind of like a science project for her. She wants to overlook it and make sure that it works. And it makes a lot more sense with her being the creator. Now, one of the things we see in the yearbook that she finds in the we'll just call it the basement, is she wins award. She's a valedictorian, but also we see her have a picture with James Eagan accepting the award in her yearbook. Now, if you look at that picture, they don't look too far apart in age. He does look older. To me, he doesn't look old enough to be a father, right? But possibly he could be old enough to, and I'm gonna go out on the ledge here, maybe have had some type of relationship with her, appropriate or inappropriate, and we don't know what that led to. So one of the things in this series that's really been skipped over, a lot of people aren't talking about, is when we see these CEOs from year to year, even from Kier Eagan on all the way down to James Eagan, we only see either the CEO or like Kier Eagan or Gerhard Eagan or Myrtle Eagan. We only see them. We never see their spouse. Their spouses are never recognized. they never even talked about in terms of who they are. So when we get from one Eagan to the next generation of Eagans, we don't know who their spouse is, or if they're even taking spouses. We don't know if the CEO of Lumen is literally just having children and then, making that child an Eagan and having that child be the next in line to run Lumen. Now, the reason I bring that up is if that's the case, if none of the CEOs actually were married or actually never had that relationship, and they were just essentially having planned pregnancies or planned children, then it's very possible that Jane Eagan could have used Cobel to birth Helena. Now, we don't have any direct evidence towards this, and we don't know this for sure. And I think even if that was the case, I don't think Cobel knows it, because her actions towards Helly or Helena don't necessarily show that. Now, if she would have gotten pregnant and had Helena, and she treats her the way she treats her now, it's because she's completely indoctrinated and feels, again, I'm going to reference what she says in this episode, all is for Keir Eagan. I'm paraphrasing, but she essentially says that. When she talks about her designs and why, she didn't take credit for the designs, she blames it on basically the cult of Keir, and saying, hey, what's mine is Keir's. So why wouldn't that same principle apply if she had a child, to say, hey, this is Keir's as well. This child will serve as the next CEO. Her being that indoctrinated, I could see how that would be possible. Now, again, it's a bit of a stretch, but it would make a lot of sense because we have no recollection of any of the other CEOs having any spouses, and it's never mentioned. So this is something to think about. Now, I want to go back to why I believe Cobel would be the perfect person to actually take down Lumen. We know her motivation after this episode being that she was the one who actually created Severance. So those were actually her designs. So to put this into context, we actually have a person who created the blueprint, the designs, the base code for everything having to do with the Severance chip. And that person not only has had her mother, seems like, infected by what went on in the factory, had her mother die, literally had lost her job. She's gotten fired. She was removed from the Severance for, meaning that she can't overlook what's going on with the Cold Harbor files, which I'm sure is very near and dear to her, because if you look at this, consider it like a science fair project that you spend hundreds of hours, maybe even years working on. You want to see the effect of that project go into use. You want to see your baby work. And so it makes sense why she's so invested in seeing Mark complete the Cold Harbor file, because she is the architect of Cold Harbor and probably the other rooms and the files themselves. So Lumen has taken that ability away from her. Again, they've left her, the town she grew up in ruins, turned some of the people she grew up with and cared about into drug addicts or drug dealers. So Lumen has literally used her and thrown her away. And now that they believe that they can complete this file and get this master plan done without her, they were okay with discarding her just as they would anyone else, right? So she's starting to realize this, and I think she's going to feel less and less allegiant to Lumen. The only question will be, is she still indoctrinated with Keir and his 9 core principles and the 4 tempers? Is she still indoctrinated with that? Because in season 1, she is very gung-ho about following those particular rules. And the last thing I want to bring up is Miss Wong and also Cobel. Just kind of draw a quick comparison. We see earlier in the season, Miss Wong answers the question of, why are you a child? And she says, because of when I was born. Now, we just assume that she said that to kind of be maybe a smart aleck. But honestly, now it looks like she says that because she's been so indoctrinated that she doesn't even know that it's inappropriate for a child to have a full-time job or a child to have a job at all. She thinks that's normal. So it would be like asking a person, you know, why are you 30 years old at their job? And they would probably answer you the same way, because they'd be like, why wouldn't I be a 30-year-old or 25-year-old at a job? That's normal. That's a ridiculous question. So knowing that she, according to Milchek, she's been going through her Wintertide Fellowship, or she's in the process of going through that now, and he has to deem her complete. We know that Miss Cobel went through that same process as well. So we can see that she is going the same trajectory as Miss Cobel. That's what Miss Wong is doing. I'm sure there are probably other children they're putting on the same trajectory that they want to use for the entirety of their adult lives. And then again, once they become no longer useful, they can discard them. So just something to think about as you reframe how we look at Miss Wong. And I think she's going to be just as indoctrinated, and it's almost like they're training the replacement for Miss Cobel, because we can see Miss Cobel was very sharp. She was a valedictorian. She won awards, and you know, everyone thought she was going to be the best thing that ever happened to Lumen. And I'm sure she was for a time, because she literally came up with huge technology for them that they're going to leverage and distribute. I'm sure they've made millions of dollars off this technology at this point anyway, and she literally has nothing to show for it now. Literally nothing. I mean, including family, because now even her aunt has disowned her. She's lost her mother. The only, I guess, quote unquote friend she would have would be, I'm going to call him Hampton now, her friend from when they were children. But that's pretty much it from her past. She didn't have anything to hang on to. They put all her medals and stuff that she used to hold dear in the basement. So now is going to be time for her get back, right? So she's going to be motivated by, you know, hey, you're not going to use my designs. I'm going to be the one to see this thing through. And that's why I say we can't be certain that it's purely to bring down Lumen or to stop, you know, this severance process from happening even to Gemma. It may just be more of, I want to be the one to get the credit for this. You're not going to steal my credit for what I've done. More so than, hey, I want to help you guys free Gemma and have a happily ever after. And I think that's why we hear her say in one of the trailers,
There'll be no honeymoon ending for you.
There'll be no honeymoon ending for you. Because I feel like she's going to get a hold of her tech, and she's going to say, no, I'm going to have you finish this project so that I can get the credit that I spent on the work I spent my life developing, or on the tech I spent my life developing. So I'm not going to say that she's going to be just a complete ally for the Innies in terms of what the Innies want done, but I do think she has turned on Lumen and is determined to take Lumen down, or either take over Lumen, you know, kind of making herself top of the food chain underneath Eagan. So it'd be interesting to see if she has any blood ties to the Eagan, or she even maybe bore children for Jane Eagan. That'll be interesting to see in the next episode. But again, if you guys agree with any of these theories that I have, let me know in the comments. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe. It's still here. I'd love to hear what you guys think on this. I think this was a good episode to establish motive for Cobel. It wasn't one of my favorite episodes, but it did let me know a lot of the motivations behind Cobel. Talk to you guys later.